Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being at the French Chamber of Commerce tonight. Today, we are really glad to welcome Tony, Eric, and Stefan, who are going to tell you about the working market for the CIO and CTO in China. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to be with us for some expert and non-expert. So today we will try to think about, brainstorm together in English about hiring CTO, CIO. What does it mean? How to do that? What about the business cases? What about the bad situation, the good situation, the risk? So we'll discuss together, and happy to discuss with my friends. So what about me? I'm a headhunter. Used to be HR before a long time ago and set up my own company a few years ago here, and running a small agency for recruitment for every sector. And we try to find people sometimes in your field. It's not so easy. And that's why we brainstorm together. And today we discuss with Stefan.
So my name is Stéphane Monsalier. I'm the CEO and founder of System in Motion. So I'm an entrepreneur. And we provide consulting services to our clients. So the CIO and the CTO is quite often our main point of contact. But sometimes our contact is the GM, the CEO, and they ask us to help them find a good CTO and CIO. And Tony?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tony Zheng. Actually, I worked as the CIO for not only China, but also for APAC, covering the country of China, Japan, Australia, and Korea, Malaysia, and Singapore, and so on. One of our mission is to driving the digital transformation initiatives to support the business growth. And also that we also have some experience about the setup of the business from the 0 to 1 with a full digital landscape. So this is about my experience. Okay.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Stefan. So let's start. So please ask for questions. Don't hesitate. Okay, I know it's not so easy, but let's do like this. Let's try. First, one question. What about the definition? What does it mean, CTO or CIO? This is a big question. I'm not so clear. Please, could you help?
So in my opinion, when we're using CTO, so the T stands for technology, it's more about the infrastructure, it's more about the cloud, computer, network. So it's really about, even sometimes about the systems or the low-level system and databases. When we're talking about CIO, the I stands for information. So it's more the connection with the business, and it's more how we do translate business challenges into technology solution, or how a CIO can take a new technology and make it into a business opportunity. So it's more on the side of the business. So some big organization, they will have a CIO and a CTO report to the CIO. Some organization, they only have a CIO. That means he's also doing the job of the CTO. And some organization, they only have a CTO, so he needs to do the job of the CIO. So that's my own definition.
Yeah, I think Stefan mentioned is good. So from my point of view, that's people always asking, what is CIO? What is the CTO? What's the difference? What's your role? And actually, from my understanding, is a different company have the different definition. Based on my experience, in some of the luxury company, they put the infrastructure. Actually, the infrastructure guy's name is the CTO. But we know that the CTO is not just the infrastructure. They're covering more about the business application architecture, like the EA and so on. EA means enterprise architecture and so on. For CIO, I think my definition is it plays a very important role to bridging the business and the technology. Thinking about you, every company of you, no matter how big scale of your company, you should have your business strategy. CIO is the person that to bring your business strategy, understand it fully, completely, and then convert it to the IT and the digital strategy and make sure how to make it happen. So this is something about the CIO role. But in the CTO, definitely, as Stefan mentioned, it should be someone that understands the tech in a very deep extent to make sure that some of the technical realization can be happen. So this is something that's my understanding.
So always specific, always unique according to the organization. Second question, how to hire a CTO or a CIO? What were the key points about this point?
How to hiring a CIO, CTO, I think some very important thing is about to define the scope of the role, because you know the different companies, they have they define the mission about the CIO and the CTO differently. So make sure that you have the very clear about the scope. So what kind of the people can do for you, and in the different stage of the company. For example, when we have a startup company, so you might not need very strong of the CIO. You might need some of the CTO with very strong technical background to make sure that to build up the things he wants to build in a very efficient way. But for some of the CIO role, sometimes it's in a very middle or big scale of the company, because the company, the guy should also to drive in the very good way to list about the key different priority for the projects, IT and digital projects, to make sure it happens.
Me, from my experience, the main challenge I see for a CEO or a general manager to hire a CIO and CTO, there's always a blocking point where they understand, they know that they will not be able to evaluate the technical skills. So most CEO and GMs, they come more from the commercial side or the sales side or distribution side, so they don't have this skill set. And their challenge is that, how do I know I'm hiring a CTO or CIO that is capable of delivering? And so they go to a headhunter, and the headhunter is trying to find somebody with it, but there's always this doubt about technology and about skills. And because they concentrate so much on skills, on hard skills and technological skills, sometimes they forget about the company culture. And they spend that time, too much time on they've done exactly the same thing in another company. Then why should they come to work for you? Because that's not a challenge for them, right? So this is somehow the dual issue. Forgetting to see a cultural fit on one side, and being kind of lost on the evaluation of the hard technical skills. Yeah.
Thank you, Stéphane. So
do you see the same thing, Eric?
The point is true. As headhunter, the key point for us is the culture, the company culture, because if we succeed, is thanks to the culture, the values of people, the values of the organization. Many times in the business cases, the clients push about the competencies, and they don't emphasize enough about culture. And we challenge about the culture. What does it mean? Sometimes people, they can explain. Sometimes they cannot explain. They don't know. And we ask for this question to the candidate. What is the culture of your company? What does it mean? Sometimes they're sharing just the values on the walls, but this is different. What is the day-to-day culture? So my point of view as a headhunter is to understand more about what is the organization, what are you looking for, who you are, no matter the organization and no matter the people. And with which people could you fit? With which team player could you fit? What are you looking for? And sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we try to know more. So third question is about how to assess the company. As a candidate, how to assess the company. Because for sure, when we hire maybe from the point of view of the company, but especially in the Asian market, in China market, the candidates are doing shopping, as we know. So point is, how could we assess?
I would say first thing, I mean, do your homework, do research the company online. I mean, classical things. If you get contacts inside the company, then do your own investigation. If you have friends who have friends who have friends, or distant LinkedIn contacts, say do your own investigation. Quite often, the CIO CTO role is a replacement. If you can find to the person who was there before, that's also going to be an interesting question. Why did you leave? Yeah. So I will go a bit private investigator on the side, because commitment to a CIO role is a big commitment. You don't go there for a couple of months and realize that it was the wrong fit, and go and find something else. So I would say I would be a bit serious into my CIO hunting job. Yeah.
Oh, as a potential candidate, I want to share with you something. One, as a CIO looking for a job of the CIO or CTO. So I think the first thing that they are looking about is the industry. because see whether the industry have the rapid growth, has some of the future, is very important thing. Then second point is a look about the company itself, because even the industry is very good, the company in the industry is good or not is also one very important thing you should think about. The third point, think about your potential, not only about the boss or the line manager, but also your peers. So think about that whether you can fit for this kind of the working environment, which can help you to assess further to whether or not you can survive in this kind of the environment, because this is very important about the land you need to work day by day. Every day you spend 8 hours with this kind of people, be happy.
And especially sometimes it's great to have many meetings, because some candidates, they just want to be very fast. But more you meet people, more you know more. You have more insights to benchmark and to take distance, to think about the situations. After it depends what about the situation for sure. Number one question, what about the competencies of a CIO and CTO? The competencies, what do you think?
So a good understanding of technology, but what does it mean? Does it mean somebody who can code, somebody who can go into great details? No, usually the CIO, they have a team. They're going to manage a team. And quite often when the CIO changes, the team stays there. So a CIO doesn't need to go down too deeply, but the CIO needs to know when he's being told things that are not really accurate, So there should be general knowledge about technology, being able to understand new technology that are coming up, and understand them for what they are. There's always big hype about new technology that are coming on the market. We're right in the middle of one, but this is not the first, this is not the last. What does it mean? And your CEO is always going to come and tell you, what about metaverse? What about NFC? What about ChatGPT? Then a good CIO should be able to reply to that and should have built enough credibility with the CEO so that the company doesn't go and spend stupid money on stupid products. Yeah. Which gets us more to the soft side, the ability to convince, the ability to sell. So a CIO must be a good salesperson, right? To get your budget, to get the budget in the right direction, and being able to convince, as Tony said, peers, and not only management but peers into you shouldn't go with that vendor. You should go with that vendor. Why? There are reasons. Oh, but they promise us a lot of great things for a very cheap amount of money. Yeah, but they're lying. Yeah. So this ability to convince and this ability to sell is critical in order to carry out a project. Because managing an information system for a company, it's not something you do in 1 week. It takes years to go in the direction. Tony mentioned at the very beginning, digital transformation. Digital transformation is fast, yes, but not that fast. And once setting up a strategy and a technical strategy, you can make some changes, but you cannot go 180 every couple of months. Yeah. So this consistency in a strategy goes through that ability to convince. So I would say, of course, good understanding of technology at a very general level, and ability to convince. I would put them top 1 and 2, and probably in the other order.
A question to you: are you a CIO before or not? Okay. Okay. Well, actually, that's to me. I think the competence is very important. I think from the hard part and to the softer part. Hard part is about understanding about the technology. The technology, including, it's not saying that I agree with Stefan, not saying that you should understand every deep side, but at least you should understand solution architecture, the ERP, mainstream about ERP like SAP, Oracle, or something like that, and infrastructure, cloud, and with some of the new trend, and also some of the, for example, some of the digital product and how we're running about the agile way and so on. So this is a hard part. And for the softer part, I think a very important thing is about the communication, because communication is very important. You need to communicate not only about from your subordinate, your peers, and also your boss. You should have very strong communication to have, and also influence skills to influence the people. And so I fully agree about the concept that Stefan mentioned about the salesperson, because CIO, at least from my point of view, is also a salesperson. what the guy is selling. Selling the concept, selling to the board, because selling the concept selling the business case to the board, because you need to ask for the budget and they can endorse you and to support you. And also you should also selling about some very specific of the solution to your peers, because one saying one day we find a very good digital solution like ChatGPT, how to embed ChatGPT with our existing system and how to bring more value by this kind of AIGC. So we should think about, and you also should selling your concept, your vision, your mission to your team, because people is not only drive by some of the economy things. Salary is very important, but at the same time, you should give some dream how you to build up your next steps. So that means the CIO is definitely the sales to the different level of the people. So this is something that I fully agree with Stefan.
And maybe one more thing. I mean, the CIO is also a manager, and that person needs to manage developers. And these are not the easiest people to manage in the world. So this management part is also extremely important.
One more thing that I want to also to echo this topic is not only about the tech, not only about the communication. Remember, very one important of the competence is the guy should be very reliable and ethical. So this is a very, very important thing when selecting this kind of the CIO and CTO. Otherwise, you will have some big problem later on.
One more thing, you keep saying the guy, but the guy can be a lady as well.
Thank you. So always, no, it's true. Always a mix of hard competencies and soft skills. Always, no matter the level. So not only expertise and leadership, and capacity to simplify the complexity. And something very strong as a leadership team member, how to simplify the complexity of the operation of the day-to-day, especially now when it's more and more complex. One point in recruitment is usually the business cases, because we are running many interviews, okay, sometimes assessment, but sometimes we propose for leadership team members some business cases. So some real situations, how to implement. So what do you think about some business cases for recruitment? Did you try already?
Yeah, it's a good way. So just to clarify, I'm not sure everybody understands the question. So the company that is hiring the CIO is going to give a business case for the CIO to work on. So they're kind of giving homework, put the CIO in situation. So it's not only blah, 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 blah. And it's about what would you do in this kind of situation. So we need to upgrade our ERP, or we need to digitalize our factory, or we need to eliminate or reduce cost of hosting on the cloud. So it's a concrete strategical or tactical question that is being asked. That is not only talking like a normal interview, but that's a homework where you need to provide the deck. So this is a way to evaluate, I think, because that relates to the previous question. It's an ability way to evaluate the ability to understand the problem and go on past experience and on technical experience. It's the ability to present it in a articulate way and make a case and sell it. And then eventually the presentation skills. I think candidates may think that they're working for free doing that, and maybe they will take the best one from the 5 candidates and the candidate as well, but they also can mix the idea. So there's kind of that feeling of getting 5 agencies to compete for a pitch and taking the best idea of the 5. One thing that I think this is misleading, because the strategy is important and the strategy is the direction, but the ability to execute is everything. Yeah. So taking the right CIO is not only the guy who has the best PPT or the lady who has the best PPT, but it's the person that will give the confidence that they can deliver on that plan. And that it's not only beautiful ideas, beautiful slides, and the deck was not designed by ChatGPT.
I agree. We talk a lot about ChatGPT. Actually, that's when we're talking about the business case, that's a very important of the indicator that we list about is ROI. But when hiring a CIO, it's not easy to always to calculate the ROI in a very clear way, specific way. So, but you can treat about what you want in a tangible way or intangible way. So, of course, the guy should lead. The potential CIO should leading the team because as a leader, and he definitely this is one of his contribution. But at the same time, I think more important thing is to measure what's the visionary thing that he can bring to the company, to really helping the company to find out some of the cutting edge solution together with the business team. Not saying IT and digital can think about something by themselves, but they can work with business team closely to think about what kind of a digital product and how to digitalize our current product service in a more efficient way.
One more thing. So in that scenario of a business case, if I were in that position, I would look for how specific this business case relates to the company. And again, it's not copy and paste from a Gartner or Accenture or whatever document that you can bring in there, but you really address the core issue that are specific to this company, because at the end of the day, that's what a CIO does. Taking a technology from the market, everybody has access to SAP. It's a bit expensive, but everybody can purchase SAP now. What do you do with SAP? How you put it in the company? What are the specific problems that needs to be addressed and where the company needs to be careful? This is why you need a CIO for. Otherwise, you just go by SAP and let the SAP implementer do the work. Yeah. So specifically, how this strategy applies to this company and only to this company.
Thank you. Next questions. Imagine we found the CTO or CIO. What's happened after? What about the onboarding? What do you think of the onboarding process? What were the key points?
So onboarding process, and that applies to every employee. First of all, it should be organized, and it's not here's your computer, here's your assistant, and start to work. So there is a way to integrate any employee at any level into the company, plan it, and execute on that planning, on the onboarding, get to know the people, get to know the business, get to know the industry. And then, again, in my point of view, we're hiring a CIO for the next 3-5 years to design a strategy and implement it. So I would say there's a mandatory observation period where the CIO should only listen. Now, produce some reporting, produce some understanding, a clear understanding of the business, and then design a strategy, and then go into execution. And I think company would like to have quick results. So I think that setting this observation period to be 2 or 3 months, again, not just 2 or 3 months of doing nothing, working, producing, planning, understanding where are the issues, do some root cause analysis to really map the environment. I mean, we're not talking about small companies. We're talking about multinational companies who are very complex. So the business is complex. The IT infrastructure is complex. There's a headquarter. Tony said sometimes you're at the head of a region. So these things are complex. Come and make a decision right away in the first week will be, I think, more dangerous than helpful. So I would say 2 to 3 months to go and wrap up the analysis, the complete analysis, and a strategy.
We see a lot of agree. Now I say disagree. Some point of, I just want to have some of the comments relevant to Stefan, what Stefan mentioned. I think 2 to 3 months is a very ideal way for a CIO on board, because you know that the business have some of expectation. And if you wait to 3 months, and you can start to delivery, sorry, you have problem. Really, you have some problem. And but I want to sharing that based on my experience, what is very good, but nothing good of the onboarding process. So first of all, definitely you should also meet the people. Meet the people means that not just a thing, listen to some blah 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 thing. You just need to understand about the different people, their expectation. What's the current situation as this situation, and what's the pain point? And also start to think about how, by leveraging about your brain, your resource, and to optimize this kind of the things in a concrete way. Okay, so talking with the people to understand the various of the people is very, very important. For example, that we also talk with the different the business function leader, like the finance, the sales, the retail, the operation and supply chain and so on. So, but also that remember after talking with them, remember what's their pain point and what kind of things you can do as a quick win, and also what thing you can do as a mid or long term win. So this is something that's very, very important. And then also the onboarding is not only about to understand your business stakeholders, but understand your team. Because I only understand your team, what's their pro, con, and what they are good at. You can understand how you encourage your team to deliver more. So this is also very, very important. But first, you need to have some of a very clear assessment about your team, the capability. Of course, that as a CIO or CTO, you cannot also to build up the roadmap by yourself. You leverage about some of the external partners, the resource to do so. So evaluate your supplier is also very important. To see what's their capability, what they're strong at, what they might not deliver is also a very important thing. So only by doing so, it can also helping you to understand about that. Last but not least, is also very important to check about your budget list, because the budget it's also defined what you can do in a very concrete way. We can sell in some of the dream, but we also need to go to the ground to see what we can do in the current scenario. Okay, this is my sharing.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question: what about the retention? How to keep people? How to keep your CIO, your CTO, and your team members?
Well, that's when we're talking about how to keep the CIO, CTO. Let's think about the question is why they leave for the current position. So my understanding, maybe it's not very true, is people leave is not leaving the company. People leave is because they leave the leader. Okay, so think about this is one thing that's in my understanding. But I think the real situation is really complex because one, you should have the combination to evaluate the current situations, your personal development plan, and so on. So then you can have this kind of the thing. From the company perspective, you should also to taking care about this kind of the demand from or requirement from this kind of the CIO. Whether they have some of the growth plan, and you can whether or not you can support them in a financial way or in some of other ways. So this is my understanding.
So I think if we go back to the CIO coming in and related to the previous question, I mean, a CIO coming in, they come from the outside. It would be easy for them to see what's not working. They will bring new ideas. So they will have a lot of interesting things to do. And I think there's a sense of success for a good CIO that is going to develop fairly quickly. Then they can go into projects that are more ambitious and deliver. Now, a CIO, a manager, top executive, they need something else after that. And the issue, being a CIO in a non-technical company, is what's the next step? What's the career plan of a CIO in a company? So you mentioned CIO can go from China to regional, from regional maybe to another region, to another country, but then that means moving with your family and being part of that group. But there's that kind of technology glass ceiling, So keeping a CIO longer means that CIO has to become something else. That CIO has to become a CFO, has to become a CEO, has to become a COO. But there needs to be different direction because we all need challenges and we all need something new. But having a CIO and saying you're good at being a CIO, so I'll keep you CIO forever, doing everything that is working fine and everything you're doing today, that's not exciting, and that doesn't create a career for a CIO. No.
Maybe I had some time because previously that I think a lot of the CIO friend you maybe see some of the wording CIO. What is CIO? Career is over, but it's not true. Yeah, actually, I agree with Stefan that you can of course look at about some other role CXO because why it's possible. You should understand your business. not only just about the technology. You should understand your business in a very concrete way. Then you can become the CXO. This is one point. Second point is about the APAC region, because when you manage one of the country, think about whether or not you can manage the different country. For example, myself, that I manage, start with China. I manage the whole China team. Then I go to the APAC, covering the Japan, Australia, Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, and so on. So it's very interesting when you fly to the country to meet your team, to talk with them, and you can see it's very interesting about the cross-culture things. Finally will help you to manage a different team, because sometimes people think, Japan, Korea, China, similar, but actually that's not the thing. We do run some of the organizational change in Japan. It's not very easy, but it's really some of the experience that to enrich your profile, enrich your experience that in one stage.
And something to add maybe is just the beginning. As a manager, as a leader, please say what you are doing, do what you say. To be consistent, always, always, always. This is from the bottom to the top, because, and as a headhunter, so many times we have a situation. Because of a situation, we can catch people, no matter the functions.
Yeah, so get new business out of that.
Sometimes. No, actually, yeah. Why people would like to leave actually? Because I get boring. What's my next step? I don't know. Get boring. This is true. Or I have a new leader. And you're right, because of a new leader. Who will be my new leader? And especially in a very strong economy, people are quite cautious, and sometimes they anticipate. Sometimes we are here. Next questions. What about the offboarding? After we keep people, what about the situation of people who like to leave because they want, or they don't have a choice to leave? What do you think?
I have to see what the people are living with, right? They're living with knowledge. So is that knowledge spread across the team, or is that specific knowledge that your CIO has and nobody else has that knowledge? So you're going to lose that. How do you assess that? And again, we get to the same issue that I alluded previously. If these are very technical topics, then the general manager may not understand what it is, and you need somebody to transfer that knowledge. And then there's the knowledge of the team, which is very important, the organization and how these things are operating. And finally, so transfer the one of the issue. I think every time I've seen a CIO change, there was never overlap with the new CIO. Yeah. So the knowledge, the information, the team organization, nobody's there to capture it. So either you have some pretty strong manager under the CIO and they can operate and they manage, and when the new CIO is coming in and they bring them up to speed, it's kind of the best you can hope at that time. Now, so why there's no overlap? Because notice 1 month, boom, gone, and the new job is already there and starting, and sometime 2 weeks of holiday and 2 weeks gone. That's the way it's structured. Yeah. So there's one alternative solution, is to have people that are strong enough internally to almost be ready for CIO. Yeah. And then look inwards into promotion will solve that issue. Yeah. So, but that works if the CIO is not considering himself an emperor that nobody can replace, and if they have that ability to bring people up. But that's also something that the HR need to be looking into it. It's called succession planning. In well-organized organization, there is a succession plan. So there is a young Padawan, a young CIO that is being brought up, or maybe 2 or 3 that are competing, which is even better, inside the organization. Yeah. So if you get a rock star CIO by Tony and that overshadows everybody, then you're always going to be in that constant replacement and that constant issue. Yeah. So one solution, succession planning, growing talents internally, because you're also solving another problem. If the layer under the CIO understand after 2 or 3 rotation that they will never be given the position, they're also going to leave because there's no career opportunity for them. Yeah. So have you seen that internal promotion to CIO?
Well, I think that the question is not easy to answer for the offboarding process because it's really case by case. There's no there. Of course, you can think about some of the normal things, the standards process, but it's really covering different case by case. A happy closing or a happy ending is not the same as sometimes it's not a very good one. Because you remember one thing, CIO, sometimes they also own some of the data, the very sensitive data, and also for the credential about which is very important. So think about it as a full plan. So before you have this kind of the offboarding within some of the cases, so just a reminder to the CEO or the general manager of the company. So and also for sure that the succession plan is also very important internally. We think it's possible, but it really depends on how many years. That's about the team, because the team, if one of the team member is mature enough, definitely there's some of the opportunity for that. But still, we should think about that what kind of the people the new CIO you wanted. You want some of a visionary one, or you want some operational one, which is quite different.
And especially as a headhunter, it's always easier to catch people for a promotion. We always, no matter the functions, very tough to catch people with the same function because, okay, today I'm CIO, I would like to do something else. But if you are deputy CIO or department leader, why not become number one? So as headhunter, it's easier to have a promotion, to catch someone outside from the company, always. But it's more tough to catch people at the same level, because the leverage is the package. This is number one story. I think we benchmark a lot. We brainstorm a lot. Please, if you have any questions about these topics, please share with us and we'll try to reply.
Thank you. About the recruitment, and you mentioned about the business case. My question would be, how do you design a good and challenging business case for the candidate?
Many cases, because usually the top leader has an issue. Could be a transformation, could be a reorganization, could be some development. So he has something in mind. So in the one-to-one relation with the top leader, we discuss about that. Because what about the stakes of the future? What should be the 3 or 5 years later? That's why sometimes it's better to discuss with the CEO of the company or the GM to have a global picture. And we integrate that because the candidate, he has to have one part of a solution. Or sometimes clients say, I want to do a copy-paste, option one. Sometimes, or just one part. And this is as a headhunter, whatever, to find the bridge or to find the leverage to excite people in a way. But it could be just a business plan. You need to set up an organization. Could you design a business plan for the CIO, CTO department? What do we need, for example? So it's always, we say, à la carte.
Another idea would be to give a brief of a past project that was maybe not so successful with a previous CIO and see what the CIO recommends. And is the CIO aware of the pitfall? And if it matched the reality of the past for that company, that's a good sign that that CIO has maybe more experience or has been there and done that and will be able to avoid those pitfalls. And then it's super easy to evaluate in that case, in that scenario. You know, just other ideas from what Eric said, which is totally valid. Yeah.
I think that I think that it's very good that to have some more specific definition. But I remember that when we're hiring one of the Japan guys, head of IT, it's definitely when we're preparing the business case, it's not easy because when Japan have some of the challenge during that time about the business side. So we should also balance some about the very tangible about the contribution about the role. And then to merge about the current the pain point about the Japan operation and so on. So it's definitely something that we should think about that.
Maybe at the same time, two parts. One part is the content, and another part is the presentation. The capacity to explain both together, and no matter the functions actually.
And is there, is there some database where you could find some example of business case and then you can pick up one which is matching what you're looking for?
No, usually no.
No,
because no matter the functions, no matter this function or any functions, it's always linked to the company. Because you can imagine the GM or CEO is thinking, what about me? What about my organization? What about today or tomorrow? So usually it's quite relevant to say, I have an issue now, could you help me? In a way, the new leader has to ask your solution. Could we help this organization? And how could we do that?
And I think this will also give a lot of information to the candidates, you know, how this organization is trying to tackle this type of problem. And when the candidates, because it's kind of like, you know, being engaged kind of on a trial period at that time. So how this presentation is being perceived, are they willing to commit to it? What are the questions that are being asked? So it goes back to our very first question, how the CIO will evaluate the company. So working on that and seeing what type of question the CEO is asking. CEO understands nothing out of the presentation, they have no clue. That's also important. So the way the company selects the business case, the effort the company puts into the business case is a show of respect to the candidate. And the way the presentation is being received is also a very good indicator of the future relationship of the GM and the CIO, or the CEO and the CIO. Yeah. You had a question? Yeah.
Yes, my question is about the retention. So basically, I mean, as the manager of the CIO or CTO, is there any typical good examples of KPIs for them, and also like motivation tools or methods, please?
Yeah, for sure, because some companies, there are some policy. Let's say talking about retention, how many years? What about my turnover for people, employee? How long? After these big rules, the day-to-day is different according to the situation, the economical situations. Or let's talk about diversity, for example, as well, some KPIs. Maybe it's much more for very international companies or very huge. For smaller ones, this is different because they don't have the capacity to do that. They try just to survive. Depend on the size. Retention is something for the common sense, for sure. But some managers, they care, for sure they care. Some managers, they don't care. And we are happy to be here as headhunter, for sure. That's why. But especially in a very strong economy like China or Asia market, the turnover, natural turnover is very, very important. In my country, usually people are staying in France from 3 years to 5 years because we don't have so many opportunities. It's like that, not because of social things, just because of the economy. In your country, I can feel after 2 years, people are exciting. They want to move. It's like much more from sociology point of view and the economy point of view. So we have to care about that. And is it because management, thanks to assignments, thanks to how to facilitate the life, how to be out of the box. Let's talk about working from home, for example. I don't know.
Add something that to address your question. So you're talking about the KPI and something of, I'm naming it as the hard things, right? You have the success factor system, you have this kind of the HR system. Every year you do it on your system or on the paper for some of the old company. But remember one thing. So return the people first using heart, because you should understand what kind of the specific demand of this kind of the subordinate. Because, for example, that some people, they stay here is because they want to chasing the secure of the job. Some of the people, they stay in the position, they want to develop themselves. For the secure people, you should try to give them some of the sense of the belonging of the team and make them feel very comfortable. Give some of the encouragement. But for the people, as another people, that is, they are looking for some of the development. Give them some of space, let them to develop. Because, you know, if you don't give them the space, even you give them more salary, they will leave. They will leave because what they are chasing is about the personal development and so on. And of course, that's some people that are in between. They just pursue the job secure and between develop something. Then makes it different cases for them. But very important thing, when you want to talking about return people, using your heart. But of course, at the same time, if it's the guy is not good enough, remember to clean very fast. Okay. Otherwise, it will impact your whole team. Means that you cannot return the people you want to return. Remember, this is very in a pragmatic way. Okay.
One of the toughest KPI for a CIO is nothing happens, or more precisely, nothing bad happens. So that means in a CIO world, that means availability. That means all the systems are working all the time without any problem, without any interruption of service. So it's the 100% availability, except that 100% availability doesn't exist because it means infinite budget. So in the IT world, and again, a CIO GM who doesn't have the culture will not understand that. Availability is 99.9, 99.99. We call them the nines, the 3 nines, 4 nines, 5 nines, 6 nines. Right? So setting up a KPI must be realistic and must match with real business needs. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. For things that don't matter, they don't matter. So this availability, this nothing bad happens, must be in line with the budget, must be in line with the business. And then the KPI is realistic. So like any KPI, they must be designed together. Yeah. Otherwise, 100% availability, that sounds like a good idea to everybody who is not in IT, but nobody can get it. I mean, Alibaba doesn't get it, Tencent doesn't get it, Amazon doesn't get it. Nobody's selling that. Nobody from the industry, everybody in the industry understand what it is because we have this culture. People who are outside don't understand that. So be very careful with KPI, realistic, business logic, and consistent with the budget. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I have 2 questions. Number one is, by the way, my name is Leon from Adobe. My question is that a lot of companies also, they have another role called CTO, the Chief Digital Officer, right? So I just hear the definition of a CIO and a CTO, and I would like to hear something about the CTO if a company have. This is first question, and secondly is that we are working with a lot of global companies. So those CIOs, sometimes they will report locally to the local GM, sometimes they will report to the global CIO. So what would be the recommendation, or how would normally the CIO be working with to balance the global view and also the local view?
Sometimes it's much more linked to IT for sure. Sometimes much more linked to marketing. It depends. So we need to catch very fast because sometimes it's not so clear. So who has the power? Who is decision maker? Depends. That's right. But yeah, you're right. We can add this definition in the CIO, CTO, CDO for sure because in a way this is the same logic. It's true. And for the organization, it really depends. Sometimes we observe some clients, this is very rational, very logic, very close to the business. Sometimes not at all, because it's linked to the past. And that's why they need transformation people, maybe to adjust, to change the situations. So all the cases.
So for CDO, yeah, once you have a CIO, a CTO, and a CDO, you have a war for sure. So then there needs to be job description, and because they're going to fight for resources, they're going to fight for budget, they're going to fight for a project. They will say this is digital, yeah, but everything in IT is digital. Like there is information. So so it's not enough. So how the territory is divided, and what are the mission and what are the deliverables? So that goes into job description. But job description, so same as the business case, you can download them from the internet, or you can design them very precisely. And then it's up to the leader to decide this project is here, this project is there, and on this project, you two have to work together. If you have a CIO and a CDO, and there's a good reason to have a CIO and a CDO, but they cannot work together, then fire both.
I try to respond to you about the definition about the CDO. So my understanding is not the same as the role of the CIO. It's not because the D means digital, because the CDO were also working about the whole digital strategy and driving the business growth. And CIO previously it's more like some of the backend one. So this is one of the difference about the two roles. But so in some of the cases, you can see CIO will support very strongly to the CDO, because one CDO have this kind of a digital strategy, and the CIO will help to realize how to realize this kind of the thing step by step in a concrete way. So this is one thing. To address your second question, I think it's really case by case, because there's no one standard for all the company. Because in some of my previous one is there's IT report to IT, means China CIO reporting to either APAC or global CIO. There's also some dot line to the CFO or the MD. But in some other cases, that is CIO only report to the China. So this is also one scenario. And also in the third scenario is CIO reporting to China MD or CFO in a solid line, but with a dot line to global IT. One of the trendy I want to sharing is about there's more changes IT reporting to IT, means that IT, so China CIO reporting to either APAC CIO or the global CIO directly. So this is something that we can see. The good case is the benefit of this kind of the setup is you can very clear communication within the IT team. So this is generally some of the efficiency. At the same time, remember one thing from a global perspective, they can also think about something is naming as a synergy, because only by leveraging the synergy, you can not only think about one solution. It's not only for China, but also for the rest of the world. We also do this kind of the thing. So this will generate some of the new synergy to potentially reducing some of the costs and improving your efficiency.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what would be the number one risk from CIO or CDO perspective nowadays?
I have an idea. I'm not an expert. Maybe information, confidentiality, compliances, efficiency. Yeah, it's better to hire no more leader, not a crazy one.
I think the risk is in a different stage. That is, I think the risk is quite different. But one thing, I think one of the common thing that we should think about, especially in the digital world, is about the cybersecurity. So this is a very, very, very important challenge that from every of the CIO one they having. I don't want to using the specific name of the company, but you might search on the internet. One of the companies that they get the hack, they're not the consumer-facing one, to be frankly. They are manufacturing. But they get a hacker and they spend around 11 million of the US dollars, and they pay it within almost one week. But think about this. So the cybersecurity risk is every of the companies they might be facing. But when the problem comes, the risk comes, we should think about how to leverage it and hedge this kind of the problem in the day one. So for example, that in my previous company, so we build up the cybersecurity in the day one, because not saying that when the system is built up, we think about the cybersecurity. No, from the day one. I also remember very clearly about one of our global leader asking, say, "Hey Tony, why are you hiring the cybersecurity guy in the very early stage?" Yes, of course, there's some of the compliance requirements in China. We have the cybersecurity law, we have the data security law, PIP, a lot of things. We should make sure it can be compliant in the day one.
So definitely cybersecurity a risk. There's another risk. It's the risk of obsolescence. It's the risk of the information system getting old, or some of the systems, some of the technologies getting old. And if you live in an apartment and you see the painting from the ceiling coming down, you know you need to paint it. But with IT, it's not that obvious. So the system's still working. Okay, we still can use it. We still can use it. We still can use it. And one day we can't use it anymore. Yeah. So that's that risk of first, what do we have in our information system? I have a clear map of the system that are there. And on top of that, that also creates a lot of risk of cybersecurity risk and a lot of vulnerability. So the two topics are related. So and it's super, super difficult to defend a budget to replace a system that is working with a new system that is working. Usually it's a little bit better, but say, okay, that system is too old, we need to replace it. This is a tough sell in terms of budget. Yeah. So I would say big risk not to maintain the system up to date. Yeah. Okay. Do we have question online?
Indeed, yes, that was the next one. So we received a question online asking how is the Chinese market for CIO, CTO? What are the perspective as well? I mean, well, first the question was about at the point now. I mean, following the opening of China, and what are the perspective later? And are they? Is there a preference maybe for foreigner or more local profiles?
Okay, let's talk from HR point of view. China economy is coming back. So right now we don't have so many opportunities as a top leader in IT, for sure. Like not only IT, let's talk about finance or many functions. A lot of position as a middle managers we can fill because the Chinese market, we need leaders to do the things, hands-on people to do the operations. Unfortunately, right now, not so many high-level leader because it's like that, because we just come back to the normal economy, to the normal life. So we have to wait. We have to be patient. We don't have a choice. It's like this. But a lot of middle manager positions. And as you know, many huge companies fire many people and IT experts. So on the market, as a first level of middle manager, we have many people on the market. So this is something we need to care. And for sure. And what about the nationality? Yeah, we need Chinese people. It's like that. It's normal. We are in China, so very few foreigners, no matter the functions. Very, very, very few foreigners. Like this.
Last one here, or even online. Well, anyway, we also received another question online. It's more about the channel for recruitment of CIO, CTO. We all know that LinkedIn had to rethink their strategy in China. What are the new channel in order to hire a CIO or CTO in China? Yeah.
Okay. It's true for the high-level people. LinkedIn used to be great before, because the Chinese people, they don't use anymore. Very few, very, very few. Foreigners, much more. It's like this. Yiping and Zhaoping is great. They are great, but this is for middle manager positions. So high level, this is more complex. So it's better to have recommendations, like some spies can recommend someone else, some suppliers, the clients recommend my great vendors, my great suppliers, and to have some recommendations and hear from the market some good points. That's why as a headhunter, it's better to do like a sort of, to be a nice spy or nice survey, investigation in a nice way, for sure. But we like that. We need to digest, we need to understand what about the organizations. So we need time. And it's not so easy, for sure.
Then you can always send a job offer to the Chamber of Commerce.
Very nice one. Thank you very much, Stéphane. Okay. So I guess that was the last question for tonight. Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. For the people offline, I invite you to further discuss with our panel through a glass of wine. And for the people online, we thank you as well for joining. And we hope to see you all soon to our future event. Thank you everyone as well for sharing your insight tonight.